Wow, got quiet. Several things. First of all, thank everybody for showing up. This is a great turnout. This is wonderful. I appreciate it. I hope that we get to know the candidates better, and the idea of doing this was so that we could get to know everyone better. I want to thank a couple people, Tony Hill, for bringing the refreshments that are in the back. She put all that together. Thank her very much. Appreciate it, Tony. And Samantha Eckhouse, who volunteered to do the nominating committee chairperson, and then also now do the election committee chairperson. So we have a nice, smooth transition on the election. As you all know, it's going to be all paper ballot, and they'll go out. And Samantha will tell you more about that in a few minutes. What we're going to do real quickly is the candidates will talk, and then people will be able to ask questions of the two people running for president, and they'll ask questions for those, and the vice president people will come up and talk. When you have the mic, please hold it close to your mouth, because the last time we did the mic thing, people were holding it down here, and then nobody could hear them when we did the recording out. So be sure you have the mic close to your mouth. Right, Sandy? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Samantha.
Which mic am I using, this one or that one?
You're using that one there.
Oh, okay. Okay, hey. So I'm going to preface this. I am volunteering for this. I am sorry if I make mistakes. I know I made mistakes in the emails. I'm really trying. Thank you guys for being understanding. It is definitely has become like a slight full-time job. And I've gotten lots of questions, lots of emails. I'm trying my best. Again, it is a volunteer role, so I do appreciate everyone's understanding with that. So I also want to thank Larry for putting all of this together, because he has been a guiding source in really helping answer a lot of my questions from residents and all of that. And then with that said, everything we're going to kind of go through or highlight tonight will obviously has been sent out, will be sent out again, but it was created by the current officers, Larry, Lisa, Linda, and Lindsay. So they've kind of looked through it, tested some things out of what they think date-wise and all of that. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of go through this, and then we'll bring up each candidate. They're going to talk for 5 minutes. And then if you guys have some questions, we'll have about 3 minutes for questions for each person and kind of go from there. Okay, so Larry, please jump in if am I far away? Okay. Please jump in if I'm saying anything incorrectly. So with that said, obviously we've called this meeting to order and everything. So we're starting there. And then the main... with our bios, we just need them by February 12th. So I did get Denise's bio right before the meeting. I apologize. Obviously, we didn't have time to send that out, but we will include her bio as well. She's going to be running for secretary as well. So we're going to include all bios that we get possibly after the meeting, but we'll send out another email that'll probably be February 12th or maybe February 13th because we're waiting until about 6 p.m. to get all of them. So Thursday, February 16th, all bios of current candidates will be distributed. So, Larry, there you go. We'll see if we're going to email those after. Just wait to distribute them. And an email will go out on the 16th. So this will be a email with a PDF ballot that you can print. But in addition to that, a U.S. letter will be mailed via Pay HOA, so the HOA system we have, to all the residents. So that system will trigger to mail them all. And that will also include a ballot. So you can pretty much print out a ballot at home or just wait for it to be mailed to you. Either or is totally fine. And then we have 3 ways to submit paper ballots. So the first one, you can mail it, and it must be received in the P.O. box no later than March 4th at 1 p.m. So again, our current officers, Larry, Lisa, Lindsay, or Linda will be checking that P.O. box to get those. So I don't have access to the P.O. box. And then if your ballot is not in the post office by the close of business Saturday, March 4th, obviously it will not be counted because it wouldn't make it in time. So if you're going to mail it in early, and then that way you can just, accommodate delivery. Yes, Larry. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I will have access to that box. See, I've already made a mistake. Okay. Please don't email me on that. So I'm going to place your ballot in a sealed envelope. Okay, so second option, place your ballot in a sealed envelope, and then you can deposit it in a weather-proof vote box. I do have cameras. Obviously, Wi-Fi can go out. We're trying our best. But that voting box will be opened pretty much daily to take them out. I did email. No one seemed upset with the fact I asked if I could take them out daily to make sure no one just steals the box or, I don't know, rain gets in it. I've had my own issues. FYI for everyone, side note, I'm currently fixing my mailbox. Squirrels tried to go into it. You will see a little brown piece of wood on my mailbox. Please don't email me about it. Again, I'm trying to fix it. I'm waiting for bricks to come in to repair it. But with that said, the voting box, everyone seemed to be okay with it because no one emailed me, but I'm going to take those out. I'm not opening them. I'm just taking them out every day. I'm going to put them on my desk, leave them there until we go to the meeting to read them all. And then the last one is you can submit your paper ballot to the community board meeting, which will be, or when we're counting them, on March 4th at 3 p.m. as required by our bylaws. And then here's the important part. Extra ballots will be provided should you lose yours. The board will meet prior to the community meeting to conduct regular business, and then the meeting will begin at 3 p.m. Okay, so I am just going to read this off line by line. There will be no exceptions to how you get your vote recorded. If it is not in the post office box by Saturday, March 4th, or in the vote box by 1 p.m. on Saturday, March 4th, and you want your vote counted, you must submit your vote in person at the community board meeting. Only one vote per address or lot number. If 2 ballots are received for the same address / lot number and they are different in their selections, both ballots will be disqualified. If the selections are the same, 1 ballot will be discarded. Okay, and then the March 4th meeting, obviously the bylaws require the meeting to be called to order. Then the election committee. So real quick, nomination committee. It wasn't just me, it was also Kelly and Terry. They were great in helping out as a group. And then the election committee will now be myself, Kelly, and then Melissa. And we will start counting votes at 3:20 or as soon after, pretty much as soon as possible. And then any new nominees will be given like 5 minutes to chat about themselves if there is someone at the meeting. No ballots will be accepted after 3:15 at the meeting or after new nominees have had a chance to speak. Any residents wishing to change a voting ballot previously submitted must notify the election committee immediately after the last call for nominations has closed. Election results will be announced at the end of the ballot counting and announced either at the meeting. Is still going on. So like the 3 of us are just going to sit together. I'll just open it. They'll just make sure I'm not like lying. I'll go through, we'll count each one, and then we have 2 other people monitoring me, which I'm totally cool with. And then the newly elected HOA officers will become the new HOA board immediately after. Okay, and I've read my papers. Larry, did I miss anything? It's totally okay. Oh, do we have any nominations from the floor? Okay, so obviously right now, then our candidates. So what we're going to do tonight is like 5 minutes to speak if they need the whole 5 minutes, and then 3 minutes for questions. I do encourage you to ask questions. Larry's also going to hold up a sign in the back. If I'm being real, Larry, I can't see it says 2, but it says 2. That's a very good idea on Larry's part, so you know when you're speaking, like I've got 2 minutes left. And then Larry, should we do something if it's like they're done? Like, I don't know. I think we should do this. So, and I've got like 3 people doing that to me now. So with that said, I'm going to start with the president nominations, VPs, our 1 treasurer, Tessa, and then, our secretary, not Tessa, sorry, Tessa and Dee. Is Denise here yet? Okay, no worries. Denise might be running late, so we'll see if she makes it for the meeting. And then we also have an ACC nominee as well, Christy. And we're going to have her speak too. Okay, so we'll start with ladies first. If we could have Jamie come up, who is running for president.
Goodness, there's quite a few people here. I wasn't expecting to see that many. My name is Jamie Gompertz. My husband and I bought our house in the Trails of Montverde in 2014, March. We love it here. We love it here. And unfortunately, things have been going on that now I've been having to get more and more involved and engaged into the HOA. But before I go down that path, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a licensed civil engineer. I've been in construction for the last 20 years, 25 years actually, 20 years at Disney before COVID. I managed $100 million worth of work annually in the construction industry, so I did all kinds of jobs at Disney. I was a leader. I managed several teams, many teams of 15, 20 people at a time, where we managed all kinds of work. I've built budgets, I've built teams, I've pulled people together, I've managed lawsuits. Actually, even before I was at Disney, I was in construction litigation for several years, where I thought I was going to be a lawyer. But after doing that for a few years, I decided it was too much reading for me, so I didn't care for that so much. But it did give me a legal background, which is why actually I went to Disney. They hired me because I had a legal background, and I worked on many lawsuits for them. So not only do I have an engineering construction background, but I'm also skilled with the legal system and how lawsuits work. So where do I go from there? If I start down the path of what's happening in our neighborhood, I do want everybody to know what has happened. That I want to be careful with my words because I don't want to cause any issues here. But I have been defending myself. Well, my husband and I have been defending our property for now 2 years. So when we moved into this neighborhood, we had 2 trailers. And we purposely moved out to the trails in Montverde because we had 2 trailers and we intended to use them and build a business wherever we landed. After being here for 6 years or so, certain members on the board decided they didn't like our trailers. So they started pursuing us and took us to mediation. So they hired an attorney. Actually, they hired an attorney one summer, the first summer, and it was done without a board vote. It was done without any communication to anyone, forced me to hire a lawyer. So we had to go down that path, and ultimately, because there was no board vote, I pushed that issue. And in September of last year, they did have a board vote, and the board voted not to pursue us. They also voted to change our covenants through definitions, or try to change our covenants through definitions. And we ended up having to fight that through the attorney. So we thought it was done. It was done. But I knew it was a potential to happen again, which is why last year I ran for president as well. During that election process, there was a lot of things that were not done according to our documents, to say it mildly, which I'm glad to see this year we are following our documents and we're doing it step by step as we should. That keeps everything clean and no one can argue with it. However, after the election last year, we found a few things, such as the president wasn't a homeowner, and we ended up having to deal with that. So there were several steps taken, and ultimately, again, the same board members came after us, hired a different attorney to come after us, and did force me to go to mediation. So I've tried multiple times to settle with them. Again, what I didn't say is we have utility trailers that are parked alongside of our driveway. They are not able to be parked in the back of our house, which is what they are saying needs to happen. There's a 3-foot drop-off past my driveway. So our backyard is not accessible to vehicles. So we have a perimeter fence and a horse path all around it where you don't take vehicles. So my trailers sit where they sit. And okay. if anybody has any other questions or wants to talk to me after the meeting too, I can do that. So, does anybody have questions? Hey, Tim.
I'm not doing a good enough job. I'm trying.
No, it's my fault.
No.
Yeah, I'm Tim Isley. I live near Benny. The only thing, and maybe I didn't understand it when you explained it earlier, but I would like to see the ballots turned in somewhere other than any neighbor in our development. And if you wonder why, there has been voting tampering in our development before. And I was called by board's members to change my vote so they could get their way. That's illegal and unethical. It could happen again. So let's turn our ballots in to a neutral location, not associated with the development. And I think that decision is up to Benny and Jamie. And it's up to them. That was all.
John Engelhardt, did you read the covenants and bylaws before you purchased your property?
Yes, I did. And there is nothing in the covenants that say you can't have a trailer in your driveway. What it does say, it says the boats and RVs have to be parked behind the front of the house. That's what it says, and unfortunately, that's what we're going to battle about in the court. Again, it was 5 years or more later after we've lived here before this even became an issue. And it didn't become an issue until my husband and I started a business. That business is in air conditioning, and I was told that the other board members were in air conditioning as well, and they were not happy that we started an air conditioning business.
My name is Ron Hopkins.
Hi, Ron.
What are your top priorities if you're elected to the board, both for the board and your position, and how do you think you will accomplish them?
I want to bring this neighborhood together. So there's been a lot of divisive fighting, a lot of censorship, and I haven't been able to be heard by anyone. So obviously I want everyone to be heard. Everyone has an opinion. Everybody bought their house under the same rules that we did. And we should all be able to discuss what our neighborhood should be or shouldn't be. So the thing is, our covenants are written, and yeah, they were written in 1986, but they are still the contract in which we bought our houses under. Those covenants need to be applied equally across the board, and right now they're not. Right now I'll call it selective enforcement that is being handled, which is why I got caught up in all this mess. And I know there's a lot of people who are upset that you may have gotten involved in it as well, because there's things that weren't being applied, rules weren't being applied to everybody equally. So some of them got letters and had to make changes, and others are still not having to make any changes. But the contract is the contract which we all bought under. So I intend to, first of all, have meetings once a month. I think everybody should be able to come and talk and be heard. So if you have issues, we should be able to discuss them and work through them. We have a contract that we're under, so if we can't follow the contract, then we need to follow the rules in changing that contract, which our documents require 75% approval of the homeowners. So all I'm saying is we have a legal corporation for the HOA, and it needs to be run like a legal corporation. The rules need to be followed and applied to everyone equally. And that is what I would intend to do.
Are there any covenants that you believe are unenforceable or you would not enforce?
I think the covenants should be enforced the way they're written or changed. And the change needs to be 75% of the vote. But I don't intend to. There's things that I think are minimal, like the trash cans being visible. Is that something that we need to deal with? I think that, I wouldn't hire a lawyer to go after somebody because they had a garbage can out on a Friday, or on a Saturday after the trash picks up. That's just as menial. It doesn't matter, and people aren't they're not doing it on purpose. It's just, yeah.
How would you
So,
address the use of property for other than agricultural and residential purposes, buildings that don't meet minimum setback requirements, and existing temporary structures?
So a lot of that was grandfathered in 2018. If you look at the documents that were published, the board decided that if they hadn't already addressed some of those issues, that they were not going to be addressed. So that's been documented in the HOA, pay HOA, and a letter, and it's hard to go back on that once it's said and that line has been drawn in the sand.
One more question. I believe you still have a lawsuit against the HOA.
I do.
So how would your lawsuit affect your ability to represent the HOA as president?
My intent is to make that lawsuit go away as quickly as I can. Again, I've tried to settle multiple times with the board, or at least one person on the board, and I don't think that settlement offer is getting through to everyone. So we have not been able to settle it yet. So there is another hearing scheduled in March, of course, after the election, but the intent is to get out of that as quickly as possible. And there may be opportunities to recoup some of our money. And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the HOA money that has been spent incorrectly and illegally.
I have a question.
What's your name?
Jeff Henkel.
Oh, hi.
And my question is, since you're suing the HOA, why should I vote for you? You're suing me. You're suing all of us.
So I have done everything in my power to protect the HOA itself in this lawsuit. So the lawsuit is actually targeted at board members personally for their actions that they have done against our documents and against actually calling board meetings and having it decided collectively as a board. So there's individuals that have not done their fiduciary responsibilities as being board members, and that is where I've done everything I can to protect the HOA and those who live here so we don't get wrapped up in that. And again, you can read the lawsuit on the Clerk of Courts. You can see how it's written and crafted, so we trying to protect the HOA.
Jamie, I'd like to ask if it was you or a member of your family that came around and took pictures of our homes and our side yards and so forth?
Yes, the lawyer. So the lawyer that I'm using is Edward Jones, or Jordan. He represented the last lawsuit that happened in 2018. And that lawsuit that was won was, again, they used selective enforcement because the rules, again, are not being applied fairly and equally across all of our homeowners. So by using selective enforcement, they won the lawsuit.
But
Now,
don't you think as a neighbor it would have been the right thing to do to come to us personally?
I did. I issued several letters to every homeowner. The first letter I wrote was on an orange piece of paper. And I made sure everyone in the neighborhood got it. So I tried to communicate that. So after that lawsuit that we had, and there was a big uproar with the homeowners, we all talked that we wouldn't let that happen again. We wouldn't let a homeowner get attacked. So when it happened to me, I tried to engage everyone. I put a letter out to everyone. I've called an open house. I called several meetings at the community building, trying to get people to come together and stop it before it got any worse. And I couldn't get enough support because people don't understand. And again, I've been censored on Facebook. I'm not allowed to communicate to anybody. Really, the only way I've been able to communicate is by mailing a letter. which if you mail 158 letters to everybody, it costs some money. So it's been difficult to get the story out there because I've been blocked from Facebook and I've been censored. So right there should tell you everything you need to know. It can happen to everybody.
So you've used, I'm Blake Rubio, I live on Paddock. You've used the term selective enforcement several times here. But you also just said that you wouldn't enforce trash cans. How's that not being selective?
If you don't target one person by saying you have to have your garbage cans put in, but not someone else, that's selective enforcement.
But you said
So if you don't
wouldn't
apply it,
you said you wouldn't enforce that.
huh?
You said you wouldn't enforce it, yet it's in the covenants.
I said I wouldn't enforce the trash cans because it is an outdated rule.
Is it in the covenants? Okay, then, you're being selective yourself.
No, not if you don't apply it. So you got to apply. If you apply it to one person, you have to apply it to everybody. And ultimately, I think we could come together and, if we want to, try to update our documents so it is a more friendly rule or easy to follow, because there's a lot of people who have difficulty with hiding their trash cans. But we can make those changes. We just have to follow the rules to do it, which requires a 75% vote of the homeowners. That's all I'm saying. Let's follow the contract that we agreed to.
So, thank you so much, Jamie. Just to allow for time for all the candidates, we are going to move on since Larry.
So I'm going to put a spreadsheet in the back, and if you want more information or want to be part of the communication, if you want to give me your name and address and email, I'll put you on the distribution list, and you can answer, ask any questions that you like, and I will be happy to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jamie. Okay, so next up we have our other candidate for president running, Benny. So we'll bring Benny up. And then I have to clarify, it was actually 3 minutes per question, but just for time's sake and ensuring that everyone gets to go, we will defer to the current president to kind of call it when we've asked about the same amount of questions. And of course, like all these guys, I know you have really great questions. We appreciate them. We are not trying to cut anyone off, but we also need to make sure that we can allow for everyone to speak. So I will turn it over to Benny if you want to come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for showing up. It was very nice to meet all of you at the beginning, and anyone that I didn't get a chance to speak to, I'd love to speak with you afterwards. In the interest of time, I'll be very brief. I'm Benny. I've lived in Lake County for most of my life. It's actually interesting Jamie mentioned that she thought she would be a lawyer. I never thought I'd be a lawyer, but here I am. So as a lawyer, I'm not a litigator. I'd like to say that I'm the opposite of a litigator. I describe myself as being a professional peacemaker. My job is to make sure lawsuits don't happen. And so being that I do that all day, every day, I believe that that's also a talent that I can bring to the HOA. Mediation, conflict resolution, that's what I do. And so that's what I would also do as president. And with that, I'll yield to questions.
Sorry.
Sorry, light in my eyes, I can't really see where the voices are coming from.
When you're president, if you become president, what are you going to do about the fact that we have not had an audit for the last 5 years in our community? I've heard rumors 5, it could be 3, but I heard 5 years. How can we trust what our people are doing in our community if we don't even have an audit, and it is in the bylaws that we will have one every year? And I've lived here since 1989, and we never had problems. And now that we're starting to have problems, I found out that we haven't had any audits. And that's not a good thing, because they say, oh, the books are in order, because I've heard talk on Zoom meetings. I don't like to hear that. I want the proof. And the other thing was signing two signatures on a check is also in the bylaws and has not been adhered to for the last couple years. That doesn't sit with me very well either. I'm thinking about next year myself, that I'm not going to pay my dues until we get these audits. Are you, as president, going to get these audits done 5 years back, or whatever it takes, to find out where our books really and where our money went?
Sir, we haven't met. What was your name? Ken? Good to meet you. Audits. I think, yes, of course, we give the HOA our money, and so we should know how that money is spent. If the bylaws call for audits, then we have to do audits. So as president, yes, I would ask the treasurer to audit going back as many years as necessary. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Hey, yeah.
Ron Hopkins, what do you see as the primary responsibility of the HOA?
Hi, Ron. Primary responsibility of the HOA is ultimately to protect property values in the neighborhood and enforce standards. So, yes.
Well, I looked in the covenants and the bylaws, and it states that the responsibility is the enforcement of all restrictions and rules and regulations, which does affect property values, but you can't affect property values directly. Second question, as I asked Jamie, what are your top priorities if you are elected to the board, both for the board and your position, and how do you think that you will accomplish them?
Sure. Let's see, my priorities. Ultimately, I've been in the neighborhood only a couple of years now. There's history that goes back, some of it being negative history. That all predates me, and I would like to not jump into that. And so the priority of my year as president would be a fresh start, resolving conflicts, getting past these grievances, and moving forward.
Are there any covenants that you're aware of that you would see as unenforceable or would not enforce?
Unenforceability, I don't want to give you a lawyerly answer, but it would depend on Florida statutes and these covenants. But personally, no, I don't think that's my place to determine what's enforceable and what's unenforceable.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, Benny. I really appreciate it. Okay, so next up we have VP. So I know we have Anthony in the room. Yeah, Melissa's reaching for Anthony. So Anthony, if you can come on up. So we'll have Anthony speak, and then we also have Lindsay, who's our current secretary, who will be speaking for the position of VP after Anthony. And then, I'm sorry. Lindsay, come on up. So we have Lindsay, and then we'll have Anthony.
All right. Everybody, my name is Lindsay Kelly, and I'm running for HOA Vice President. I'm your current secretary and have been a member and volunteer of the Grounds Committee for about 4-ish years now. I am a structural engineer by profession, woo-woo for civils over here. I specialize in themed entertainment, attractions. I'm kind of surprised our paths didn't cross. I was actually at ANFE for a little bit. I think you were at FAM, if I remember. Yeah, so anyways. So themed entertainment, attractions, let's see, different arena venues, football arenas. SoFi Stadium was one of our projects, which was pretty fun. if you're a football fan. Others may know me. There's a lot of people in the room that I do recognize. I have a couple horses. I'm always kind of frolicking around the neighborhood. I have a big black woolly mammoth named Apollo that you probably see in the front yard. I get a lot of people that like to come up and say hi to us riding or just when they're out mingling. I also put together one of the haunted house walkthroughs every year with Tessa and her husband. They help out, so we're over on Thoroughbred. If you have kids, or some people don't have kids, they still like to come and enjoy the Halloween festivities, so that's always fun. In general, I'm a doer, so I see something that needs done, and I typically go do it myself, or I come up with a plan or some method of how I can do it, and lots of times I rope people in to help me with that. Thank you, Tessa. She often is roped into that. Appreciate it. Anyways, that's actually how I started getting involved in the HOA and the community. When I moved into the neighborhood around early 2018, I was down riding at the arena, and at that time, I realized the arena had a lot of potential, and it just needed a little bit of TLC. So fortunately for the community, I've been riding for like 20-some years, and have ridden all over the country, D1 schools, A1 shows, super fancy arenas all over the country, to low-end backyard situations, which are doable. You know, not everyone can afford everything. So I've had a lot of experience with different types of arena dragging and maintenance plans and whatnot. So I got to meet a lot of horse neighbors or just friendly neighbors that wanted to lend a helping hand, and started a arena maintenance plan. So monthly, several of us spend 4 to 6 hours at a minimum, I would say. Kind of comes and goes depending on the time of year. But we drag the arena weekly, which is required about 2 to 3 days a week, if anyone's familiar with horses and arenas. Weed pulling, weed spraying. We're always looking for volunteers. If anyone has nothing to do on a Saturday or Sunday, please reach out to me. But we do enjoy what we do. So we have an arena maintenance plan. We all rotate weekly to drag. Guess I'll jump really quickly to the last part since I'm running out of time. My time on the HOA, I have enjoyed, it's only been about a year, but I've thoroughly enjoyed putting together plans. I have quite a few fun things I would like to see the neighborhood do, and I'm hoping to get community support and votes to have some common area plans come to fruition, per se. I'm obviously totally up for updating bylaws. I think from what I've learned, just being in the community, that it's definitely warranted. And I'd love to talk to anyone about anything, so shoot me a Facebook message. I think my email will be on the bios that are going out. I'm always open to talk about neighborhood things, non-neighborhood things, horses, animals, you name it, whatever. Clearly, I like to chit-chat, so I didn't even go off my list that I made. But anyways, appreciate your time and appreciate the vote. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Lindsay. So, do we have questions?
Yeah, Bill Frick. Excuse me. Lindsay, can you just describe what you believe your primary role, what your function's going to be as a vice president?
I would say my function would be to advocate for everyone in their best interest, whether that be helping enforce any of the laws, or when it comes to updating and bringing out those votes, just making our community a better place. And yeah, pretty much think that, obviously property values are important, but I just want to make a positive atmosphere for everyone, and always have an open ear for everyone as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, hang on.
I keep hearing everybody talk about wanting to update the covenants and restrictions. What in particular do you think needs to be updated?
I don't think there are major specific changes to what we have, but maybe just rewording of some of it. I think a lot of it is open to interpretation, and that's gotten, a little bit of 10 people will read the covenants, and 10 people will have 10 different thoughts of what certain things will mean, or what we should proceed in a certain path.
So you don't think they mean exactly what they say, and nothing else and nothing less?
I think some can be confusing.
Okay, hang on one sec. Sorry, I saw his hand first, and then I'll come to you.
I agree with that comment, and it's a very dangerous, slippery slope. I was on the board myself, and we tried to update the covenants and get 6 people together just to represent the community and then roll it out to everyone. So a reminder, there's no update of covenants without a vote of everyone in the neighborhood. The arena, I would love to know, as the gentleman pointed out in the back, I'd like to see an accounting of how much money is spent out of our pocket on that arena. That is community property, not meant for a corral. Our bylaws are for riding horses on the trail and on your property. That community property has never seen a dime for the rest of us. That corral was built illegally, and we're spending money continuously. And you can laugh back there. There's going to be another lawsuit if somebody doesn't put this to vote. Members need to vote on things, and they're doing things without the vote. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Lindsay, did you want to respond at all to that?
I think that's something that should definitely be added. It should be in, it's the common area, so it should be added under what's in the common area.
Okay. Yes, sorry.
Deborah Finley, Fosgate. 2 things. How many owners of horses are there in the community?
I think I know about of a dozen or so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And a second thing about trailers and other kind of non-cars parking in the driveway. To me, it doesn't make sense to have it parked behind your property. Is it because you don't want anyone to see it? But no matter where you park in our neighborhood, somebody's going to see it. If you put it in your backyard, you got people in the back looking at it. If you put it in the front yard, you got people in the front looking at it. So I think that's almost a non-issue. But again, I'm on Fosgate.
Yeah, did you want to respond?
I would just say that, I think, and I don't have it with me to know the exact verbiage, but I think it just, for whatever reason, at one point when they were originally written, they said behind, I think, the back face of your home or the back setback of your home, if I recall. I'm not sure the exact lingo of it. But again, if that's something that 80%, 70, or 76% of the people in the neighborhood decide that they don't care to see trailers in the driveway, then that should be an item that's updated. We have a lot of new neighbors in this neighborhood, and obviously people have different opinions and thoughts on those things now than they did 30 years ago. So.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Okay, gentleman second. Okay, so we have Anthony, who's also running for VP.
Hey guys, thank you everybody for coming tonight. I think it's really super important that everybody takes part in the HOA, first and foremost, because this is our home. This is where we live. This is our biggest investment, is our property values. Give you a little bit of background about me. For the last 28 years, I've been doing insurance, all types of insurance, mostly life insurance, retirement planning. I've dabbled in Medicare. I've done major group sales and group health insurance for some of the largest companies here in Central Florida for many, many years. I've also done real estate for the last, getting on, I think, 10 or 12 years now. So I'm uniquely familiar with property values, what makes them go up, what makes them go down, issues in neighborhoods, dealing with people. Obviously, all of those things lead to very strong negotiating skills. My thing with my clients all the time is I try to tell them, listen, from an insurance standpoint, we want to make sure that you're protected. We want to make sure that you, in the eventual worst case scenario, you'd be a successful defendant. But we want to make sure that we protect you and position you in a way that you don't have to be a defendant. That's what insurance is. It's about mitigating and managing risk. So one of the things I'd like to bring to the table is that. I'd like to partner with the president. I'd like to use those years of negotiating To kind of piggyback on what Ben said, you know, our job as the board is to protect our neighborhood, to protect our values of our homes, and to live peacefully and have a good time and be neighborly. We came to the trails, I think in 2019, and we kind of came in not so much at a great time because there was a lawsuit going on, and then right after that, we got stuck into the pandemic. So we really never got that neighborly feeling, and I'm kind of jealous that a lot of people here that have been here a lot longer seem to have this really tight-knit thing going on that we were never allowed in. And it's really by circumstance more than anything else. So what I'd really like to see is how we can make a change and do something different. We're never going to get to move forward if we're living in the past. We got to make a decision to make a change somewhere. People have to negotiate. People have to compromise. People have to talk to one another, okay? And when you talk to somebody, you need to mean what you say and say what you mean. Let's not be ambiguous. There are some things in the bylaws that I think are slightly ambiguous that can lead to some dissension among the ranks. I think we need to fix that. And we need to do it together as a team. We're all in this together. That's really all I have to say. I'd like to open it up to questions. Anybody have anything that I can hopefully clarify?
Any questions? Okay.
I'd like to answer this under duress.
I'm just curious because one of the things that I've heard a couple of things tonight being said. I think Tim, is that your name up there? I never knew that it's very hard to communicate here. We can't communicate on Facebook. We don't know a lot of the stuff that's going on. I asked for HOA meetings so many times and we just haven't had them. But we've all come together, and this is like the first step. And I think if we have these more often, we can all talk to each other and find out what's going on and ask each other questions. We don't have to be nasty, which could happen on Facebook. But you were on the board at one point, and I'd love to hear your experience.
So I was on the board, I think it was 2019 or maybe 2020, and it was right in the middle of the pandemic. The hardest part about that is we couldn't really come together. We couldn't really talk to one another face to face. Everything was really through email at best, maybe some text here and there. And I feel like the board was uniquely handcuffed by what was going on at that time. And I think a lot of dissension happened there. I personally feel like a lot of things that went on when it first started with some lawsuits, with some issues with the selective enforcement and whatnot, we couldn't come together as a board. I couldn't do anything as a vice president because there was no meeting of the minds. Everything just kind of happened. It happened top heavy, and that was it. There was no planning. There was no negotiating. There was no mitigating. It just was. And that whole year, I feel, being on the board was, for lack of a better term, a waste. I could not affect any changes. I couldn't help do anything. Even things that I wanted to do that I had, power over in my personal field, even those places were closed. I couldn't help. There was questions about insurance. The insurance carriers weren't even open for business. They weren't taking new clients. They weren't doing a lot of things. So that whole year was, in my opinion, a wash, and it left a bad taste in my mouth from being on the board. But after seeing what's been going on for the last couple of years, my feeling is that I really want to get back into it and be involved, be part of the team that makes the change, be part of the team that makes our community better, plain and simple.
Okay, hang on, we have another question.
Anthony, I know that our website that we have, Pay HOA, is probably the worst website I've ever seen in my life. I went on that thing and searched for stuff, and it's all over the place. We need to have a better system. Can you help us out with that?
I'm not a web designer. But I do think that some changes need to be made. I think it's a pretty basic site. I think that most sites have the ability to be made better. Again, I think we need to come together as a board and figure out what the community wants to see on that site, and then take those ideas and make it happen. We can talk about these things all we want till we're blue in the face. If we don't do anything about it, I don't want to waste my time talking about it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Oh, one more question.
Hi, I'm Pat, and my husband John.
you doing?
You may know us because we do have garage sales every year.
Yes.
So you come by the house. We've lived in the trails 13 years, but I originally moved to Montverde in '87, and I saw this whole area grow. There were 3 houses in the trails when we moved here. I am not familiar with all the covenants. I don't read them. I just try to do what I'm supposed to do. But one thing that I know that happened with our neighbors next door to us, they moved in about 9 or 10 years ago. They had a big truck in their driveway. Didn't bother us because nothing, the people before that had pigs, so nothing,
Big
nothing,
difference.
yeah. We didn't have to worry about our leftover food. The pigs ate them. But anyway, 9 or 10 years ago, it was my impression because, we're talking about a board a while ago. He did get a notification, and he did have to get that truck out of the driveway. It wasn't even in the driveway. It was kind of parked in between the driveway and our house. So I'm wondering, is it a matter of the wording? Because from what happened to him, we saw it happen. He had a truck, a big truck parked there. It had to be moved and it had to go out. So are you familiar with covenants? Are any commercial trucks allowed to be parked in driveways or in the front of the house?
I'm not specifically familiar with the commercial truck aspect of it, but the trailer part of it is a little more clear. It impacts me personally as well because I happen to own 2 trailers. I own a travel trailer, a boat, 2 boats, all those things. So the point is that I don't necessarily know that your question is about the truck being there or a commercial truck being there. It's about enforcing those rules. Right? You're wondering if...
I'm just wondering because 10 years ago, whatever rule it was enforced, and he had to get rid of that truck immediately.
And I agree. And I don't say that that's the issue. What I'm saying is the issue is that if he had his truck had to be removed and the neighbor down the block had a truck that didn't have to be removed, therein lies the problem. It's not... I don't know what happened 10 years ago because I wasn't here 10 years ago. But I'm saying that the covenants have been the same, and the issue with the covenants isn't necessarily the covenants themselves, it's how they're enforced.
Okay. My other thing is just a comment because I read Next Door Neighbor all the time, that. And over the past 6 months, I know 3 subdivisions. They were on there complaining about their subdivisions going down, losing money, etc. Property value, because covenants were not being enforced. And, so that's one thing. If we have covenants, let's enforce them. And if they need to be revised, well, then that's something that the whole community needs to revisit.
I think the big thing about the covenants is none of us want our neighbor painting their house pink or purple. Okay, that's what's going to ruin the neighborhood, realistically, because no one's going to want to live there and no one's going to want to buy a house near them. Homeowners associations are supposed to protect us against those things, or protect us against your neighbor, your next door neighbor, having everything in their yard that they've ever owned in their entire life. Okay, no one wants to live next door to Sanford and Son. It's just a reality. And what we're trying to do, what covenants, in my opinion, are trying to do is protect us all against that. Now, there's different degrees, okay? That's the problem when covenants aren't explicit, you have interpretation, okay? And interpretation leads to bias, and therein lies the problem.
Okay.
And that's what we're trying to avoid.
Okay, any other
Thank you.
questions before we wrap up? Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, next up we have Katie, who's running for treasurer. Ladies first.
Closer. Good evening. I will make this short and sweet. I want to start by thanking everyone for their time tonight. My name is Katie Mayo. I'm running for treasurer. I am a physician, and I work with Orlando Health. I work at Dr. Phillips Hospital. I only practice hospital medicine. I don't have an office or anything like that, so it's definitely been an interesting 3 past years for me. We've been very busy. I moved to the trails of Montford 2 years ago, and during my time here, I have really enjoyed getting to know our neighbors that live in the surrounding houses, as well as many of you that we see walking, and it's been great getting to know you and your dogs. I am running for treasurer because I want to give back to this community. I want to move forward into this coming year with a fresh beginning. I want to represent you and your families when it comes to making big decisions in our neighborhood. I will do everything I can to serve you and support you if you were to elect me as treasurer. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. So we'll open the floor to questions. You see how I turned to you first?
I know, I knew it.
I got you covered. Hang on.
Ron Hopkins. You've been here long enough, you've probably seen how we do our financial reporting and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you would like to do differently, or that you goals that you want to set for your position this year that might be different than what we've seen in the past?
So one thing that I would like to see happen in the coming year is budget transparency. I think everything should be all the money that comes into the HOA, all the money that goes out, I think should be available for everybody to see. So I think we should all be able to see where our money is going and exactly what it's being spent on. So my goal is to go through everything. I've never looked at the budget before for this community, but my goal is to go through everything and make that information public to everybody.
Okay, we have a question in the back.
Back to the audit again. And being the fact that you and the president, the going to be president maybe, are in the same household, are you aware that you cannot both sign the check and live in the same household, regardless whether you're homeowners or not? You cannot live in the same household and both sign the checks. Are you going to require two signatures on the check if you're elected?
I'm not familiar with that law. If that is a law and that's something that's written in our bylaws or written in Florida law, then that's what we need to require.
Well, it's in our bylaws, but it has not been being done because someone said, oh, the bank says we don't need to. I don't care what the bank says. Our bylaws are laws. You go by what it says to do. You don't just make up your own thing. So I need to know, are you going to do that?
If it is in the bylaws, then I do intend to do exactly what the bylaws say.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, we have a question in the front. We'll come back to you in just a sec.
Could you please describe any experience that you've had in the past managing budgets and creating budgets for communities like this?
So I've never been on an HOA before, but I am at our hospital. I'm the director of our intermediate critical care unit, and so I sit in meetings where we, do a lot of budget planning for the unit in terms of staffing and supplies for the unit and, how many patient beds we have and things like that. So, I think a lot of that experience could be applicable to our HOA.
I ditto everything Anthony had to say earlier. Back to the budgets, and again, he's asking for transparency. I think we definitely need it. An experience I had because I was on the board, and this is something we need to rectify. When you're on the board, you present the budget for the next year. You present how you're going to spend it, and everybody's invited to come. Our committees, everyone. We had very little participation, but we presented the budget, and then were replaced with a new board. Within 1 month, the budget was thrown out, and they reallocated the money the way they wanted to. So my question is, how can we move forward as a development if we can never set a goal and stick to it more than one board administration?
Yeah.
I mean, how would you do it?
So, I know there have been a lot of ongoing issues within the HOA that have been present for several years. I think we definitely do want to do things differently, and you've been hearing us echo these same words of a fresh start and doing things differently. I want to be very open and very transparent with you all. I'm the type of person that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And so if we have, as a community, have decided that we're going to allocate our budget in a certain way, then I intend to stick to exactly what we said we were going to do.
Hang on. Sorry. You're required to be in the mic.
No, I don't want to delay the meeting. My point is long-range planning for the development. How can we ever do long-range planning with short-term boards? So somehow we need to do that for the betterment of everybody here.
Okay, and we have another question in the back or side? Back side. Going over. Hang on 1 second. Hey, I did ask if you had another. I did. I'm coming. It's okay. Take your time. You're good.
I believe that our accounting is currently done on QuickBooks. What accounting background do you have? Would you continue with QuickBooks, or would you go back to a paper accounting method based on your capabilities?
I've never used QuickBooks before. I would like to meet with our current treasurer and see the current system and see if it's something that I feel like I could work with. If not, maybe transitioning to a paper system or more of like an Excel situation might make more sense. But until I see the way that our budget is currently run, I would need to see if that would be a system that would work for me or not.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Katie, thank you so much for your time. Okay, Denise, have you arrived? Okay, so we'll see if Denise arrives tonight. If not, it'll just be Tessa speaking tonight. So, yeah. Well, first let Tessa speak, and then, yes. Yeah, we've got 2 more people. You're making me mess up now. I'm going to get an email from someone that I answered a question, and it wasn't question time. That was off the record. He started talking. He didn't have the mic. I'm just saying. We did not time his question.
Samantha, you're doing a great job.
Okay. She said it. It was off the. That's on the record. Yeah.
Thank you for mediating and taking this on. I know it's a great undertaking. My name is Tessa Dillon. I'm a nurse practitioner for Orlando Health. Although I don't know Dr. Mayo, we are hoping to get to know each other pretty well. I do know Lindsay Kelly very well. We work closely on the Arena Committee. I am running for your secretary position. In my previous life, I was a secretary for about 10 years for a pretty small WBE company called Winter Garden Grassing. So I handled a lot of their transcription stuff, typing up all of their information for their proposals and things like that, and anything that they required me to do for that. So I think that would lend to me being able to keep accurate records of our meetings. I currently work as a nurse practitioner, and as you know, 90% of medicine is charting and record keeping. So I think that also lends to the ability for me to be able to effectively keep records for our meetings, which is essentially the role of the secretary in an HOA. My intention is to help bring us forward and allow that transparency along with the assistance of the rest of the board and work together for the betterment of our community. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions? Yes.
Ron Hopkins. I assume that you're familiar with the minutes that they currently take and that are made available to the membership on occasion. Would you consider that those are adequate?
I think that the minutes, I've only read a couple of the minutes, to be real honest with you, from the board meetings where I've looked at them on PayOHA, and I think that they adequately reflect what we have talked about during the meetings that I've attended. I can't speak to meetings that I didn't attend to, so those past minutes I would not be able to tell you. But for the ones that I have read for the meetings I have attended, they seemed like they adequately transcribed that information.
So we only see the minutes. We don't see the committee reports. There's a whole bunch of information that generally is not recorded in the minutes. It should be part of the meeting minutes, and I've requested in the past, but it's never shown up.
Okay.
I don't have a response for that.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, great job. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think I saw Denise come in the room. Denise? Okay. So we'll move on from secretary to ACC. So we have an ACC position open. I'd like to introduce Christy. If you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah, come on up.
Hey everyone, hopefully can get this done quickly and I'll go home. My name's Christy Stevens. I'm running for ACC because I'm passionate about our community, and I look around and I think that there's a lot of potential to keep up what we have and make sure that we are following the rules and the standards that are set out. I have some experience in real estate. I'm a paralegal. So for the last 10 years or so, I've basically done commercial and residential transactional work. I've got some experience with real estate, and so I feel like I can bring a fresh perspective to the ACC and just kind of help make sure that we're all being transparent and we're all following the rules and making sure that everything is staying the way that it should be to uphold our property values. I love our community. Short story, when my husband and I were relocating to this area, one of our really good friends was like, oh man, if I ever moved down to that area, I would have to live in the trails. I'd have to live in the trails. And so when we came down, we started looking around, and it just, through some good luck and some good timing, we ended up buying our house, and we're so happy we're putting a pool in now. So, so that's a process. But anyways, I wanted to introduce myself, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, great. Any questions?
I'm cool without
Yeah,
questions.
they're
too.
like, she just...
Everyone's getting tired now, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Oh, wait, yeah? Wait, we're about to close for questions. Do you have a question? Hang on.
Gotta have the mic.
In the past, if you've lived in the trails a while, there have been some hardship cases. And I know years ago, the board would then put volunteers together and would go help the family who had hardship, because there is some rundown property.
Yeah.
There's a few in our area, and there's reasons, if you get to know the people, why it's that way. So I'm just pointing this out, that might be something that, I don't know how we do it, but try to help some of the people that are having hardships in the neighborhood. Some of the better homes today were run down at one time. So again, I'd love to see that come back.
I think that's really nice, actually, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, one more. And is this question for Christy? Oh. Okay.
Are you running for a full-time position on the ACC or the alternate position?
Actually, if I could interrupt on that. So just to clarify, we have an ACC position open. Per our documents, the ACC committee then decides as a group who will then, they actually are all full-time. I think you mean chair? Full-time. My apologies. I'm incorrect. Do you want to volunteer? Okay. Would anyone else like to volunteer?
Any volunteers?
Okay. I have asked a lot of people. Okay. I've asked a lot of people to volunteer for things. I think it's a great idea that we help others. And we have another question in the back. If you do want to volunteer and you change your mind, I know your house. I'll come grab you. I'll nominate you in.
I'll volunteer for the ACC alternate.
Nice. Okay. And your name again?
David Pierce.
Hang on real quick before we let Christy go. Is there anyone other questions? Thank you so much, Christy. Yeah. Okay, so we have David Pierce, who is running for ACC alternate.
Good evening. My name's David Pierce, and I live on Thoroughbred, Lot 97, for those who are interested. I've lived here for 28 years, and I've been president twice, vice president twice. I've been on the ACC several times, and like everybody who's spoken, I'd like to see unity. And things are very divided right now. And so if I can contribute, I'd be glad to. My background is I used to run a property management company, and I managed HOAs, condos, office buildings, shopping centers, and that's why I retired. It will kill you. I'm a licensed real estate broker and have been for 20 years. So I know a lot about real estate since I owned a real estate management company, and that's what I'll contribute as an alternate.
Okay, great. Any questions? Perfect. Okay, thank you, David. So I'll add you to the email. If you want to send me a bio, I'll circle back with you. I need your email address before we leave, okay? Okay, do you want me to kind of close it?
We'll be sure to give Denise's bio out with everybody else's. She had an appointment and she couldn't make it tonight. But I want to thank everybody. Had some great questions, and appreciate a lot more people came out than I was expected. And I think this is great, showing the community starting to come together. And thank you very much for your time. And we'll start the election process. I sent the email out, given the dates, and we'll stick to that, and we'll go from there.
If you don't have the amount of votes that you need to vote, but you said the deadline was March 3rd, or March 4th, excuse me, what do you do then?
There's the amount of votes is whoever votes. No, sir. With the amount of votes that vote is what is the number counts. It's the majority of who votes. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. CC&Rs require a 75% vote of the entire community.
Hang on, I'm kicking Larry to the stage. Hang on one sec. Let's give him a moment. There we go. So he has a mic.
Okay, good.
I know it was brought up earlier about counting the votes, and if that can be done in a nonpartisan area, or because I believe I am on the election committee,
Yes.
I think. I don't know. But can we somehow do that instead of, I just don't want to leave here today and then never talk about that again. Can we somehow bring that up again and come to some kind of conclusion of making sure we can count those votes differently?
I don't understand the question.
Yes, so to clarify, we're going to do that in front of everyone at the meeting, maybe in a place like this. So
Sealed.
the votes are sealed, being dropped in the box. I
Yes.
get a post office key.
Yes.
I have not received one email with people thinking I'm going to do something. I feel like a pretty honest person, but yes, where they're going to be sealed and open in front of all of us. And so you're going to help me, you're going to watch me count.
And I don't think you're doing a bad job. I think you're doing a phenomenal job. No, you keep saying email me. Don't anybody email her. I think she's doing a great job, but you keep saying that. I think you're doing great, so thank you.
So yeah, and Melissa is on it, and then Kelly, who couldn't make the meeting, she's out of town right now, I believe. So yes, so they are going to watch me. We're going to do it together. It's a team effort, so that so Jamie selected Melissa, and then Benny selected Kelly, and then Larry selected me, so that way it's fair. The candidates have agreed already to the way we are collecting votes and who is counting the votes. So we will be continuing forward with what we have addressed in today's meeting. And we did have one additional question.
Who is verifying that these votes are legal owners and not 2 owners per lot before they get counted?
The ballots, as in past years, will have to have your name and address on it. And there's only one address per, or you have to have your name, address, and lot number. It's just it's per lot, so we're not checking the deeds to make sure that the person that voted is on the deed.
Well, I'm sure we have a paper that's going to list who the residents are that own those properties. So I'm sure we have that in Pay HOA. So what we can do is while I'm counting, for example, Melissa or Kelly will cross-check on the file, which only makes sense, right? That we're going to mark off like each person. It's going to say the name on the vote, right?
Right.
And that way, right, she is making sure we're good. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. We're doing our best. Me, Melissa, and Kelly are going to do our best.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, 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 okay. Oh,